Welcome. Thank you for being here. Colina, SatMom. This is Pleasure Talks 1.1, take two. Sound is always a good thing. So, the topic of the conversation for this one is pleasure, accessible even in pain and contrast. Yeah, I feel like that's a big one because we've really been, pleasure and pain have both been mislabeled. So, let's start there. What is pleasure really? We've been taught that we need to seek pleasure and disconnected from the fact that pleasure is our inherent kind of natural pilot wave. Yeah, we were born from this energy of pleasure. It's literally the thing that conceived us and the energy that grows us. And then we come into a world that convinces us, if I could even say the word, that we are somehow separate from pleasure and we have to go seek it outside of ourselves. So, which is really fruitful for people that want to make money off of us and use our energy, but it's not effective for those of us humans that require our pleasure to be in an innate and natural part of ourselves. So, in disconnecting us from the natural state of being pleasure and the fact that pleasureful experiences can run our lives, then we're forced into a corner where we have to go out and seek that. And that's where they've been able to put a whole lot of really dark edges on pleasure because that space of lack, that space of pleasure is not good. Pleasure is a sin, right? And it's gotten so deeply embedded in our bodies that it feels uncomfortable to sit intimately with those that we don't have, sexual relations with, especially, in the group of people you're attracted to, let's say, with men and women, but depends on. So, and I was noticing this in sisterhoods recently, like how much it's our joy now to be able to bring back intimate connection in platonic relationships. I've been noticing how in sister circles we're able to open to more of an intimate connection. Recently, I had a beloved sister lay with her head on my lap, and just like the joy of stroking her head and saying sweet things and connecting over, a particular trauma that was coming up around that. And, our ability to pause in any moment and notice that our natural wave is pleasure is really a gift that we can give to ourselves. And it's the thing it's the thing that I felt the most disconnected from all of my life. Very, very incredibly shut off from. And I felt that the way to derive pleasure was to work hard enough that I could eventually get there and be good enough for it. And pleasure was always waiting for me to stop and recognize her. So, pain and contrast are the things that we've been kind of conditioned to believe that life is about. And the harder we work, the more we deserve to play. And we definitely should work hard, especially when something is our passion and called to pour something out of ourselves. We should not hold back on that. But we've given ourselves over to kind of an enslavement of our bodies and our minds. So we get a chance now to kind of stop and reassess. and begin to take that back, because there's contrast and pain in life, and it's just the same coin as pleasure. One side, other side. There's no time where when we have pleasure, pain is totally and completely gone from our system. Our body knows no memory of pain whatsoever, because time itself is an illusion. There's only this present moment. Everything we've ever experienced in this life, in our past lives, in our ancestral patterning, is present right now. The past is a memory, the future is a dream. We've only got this moment. That's why it's called the present. It's a gift. It's the only gift we can access. And as we access the moment, we open ourselves to pleasure. And pleasure is what brings our full presence here. There's not a piece of us that is running away in the current moment. Now, there may be pieces of us that are used to running away, feel more comfortable running away. You see, so pleasure requires us to go grab those pieces, because pleasure requires us to bring all of ourselves present. Otherwise, we're chasing pleasure. We're chasing stuff that feels good. And all things that feel good aren't necessarily pleasureful. That's an interesting one. Notice the energy level. Notice, are you feeling uplifted or hiding? So we've been taught to chase physical pleasure over being able to sink into the pleasure of our own presence in the moment, how we can be fully available. And purposefully slowing down, because I tend to speed up when I lose my pleasure and I get into the chemicals that shift in my body when I start a video. Okay, so contrast. This is a term I learned from Abraham Hicks. Contrast. We associate pain and contrast in similar ways. Pain is a contrast that we have chosen to hold to in some ways. Have been spending this lifetime working with a term called fibromyalgia, and how my body likes to pull in on itself for a perceived level of protection. So I've been playing with this pleasure and pain, and not to dive into like that particular dynamic, but in a personal way, it's our presence with pain and working with the fear of it that kind of can open the door for our capacity to hold pleasure, because it's not that. The more we have a capacity for each to understand and compassion and like a space to hold the pain and the various things that come along with our human existence, the more we have the capacity to hold love and pleasure as well. So it's not ever one or the other. So it's the ongoing contrast in our lives that helps us fully understand what we don't want and what we do want. So once we experience that contrast, it's like, oh, hell no, like this is what I want. And that rocket of desire, another Abraham Hicks term, is instantly sent to your higher self. So that's going on. That's in the works. Whether your body and your mind are working on it in this moment or now, your higher self, the universe, has got your back, and that's going on. So, but then we get lost in the contrast of, but this is what I know that I want, and it hasn't arrived yet. And the more that we can bring the pleasure into the process of watching it arrive, taking the steps to allowing it to arrive. And that's just not just like the tangible steps in business to launch a product, it's the tangible steps inside to create a landing pad inside me for that which I want in life, and to dissolve those landing pads for that which I don't want, which requires showing up for myself in a way that says, what did I need here? When I sectioned this side of this part of myself off and said, you're not allowed to see the light of day, what did I need? What kind of acceptance, what kind of love did I need then, and bring it to myself? That's the way we get those pieces back. And it's much simpler than we think, because we think that we need to forgive people or forgiveness from other people. And all we need to do is learn how to accept things and bring bits of love to that totally 100% deserving, full of love inner child that was born into this world totally divine and was told pieces of him or her did not belong, so get rid of them. And in us doing that to ourselves, putting that piece away because we didn't have the filter, we didn't have the understanding or the safety to say, no, this part of me deserves to be a part of me. We do now. And our inner child is just waiting for us to come back and remind that and show our presence. And then we can start to just, really drop into pleasure a lot more easily. Before our inner child feels safe, it feels like we're chasing pleasure and we're caught in contrast because there's the unsafe, abandoned, lack, victim, fearful, all of those core wounds that may be present with you are what's running the show. And so for me, like the most tangible way to get there is with a sensual practice. Meditating can really help be the thing for certain people. But since we've been cut off from embodying the depth and the presence, our sensuality, and we were cut off from that for a reason. It's because our sensuality is the key to opening the connection to our full selves, connection to fully connect with other people in our communities, and to be able to build healthy, vibrant communities. When we are fully connected with our capacity for pleasure, even in really intense times of pain and contrast, we still know what is a yes, what is a no, and how to stay grounded and like present with ourselves in the middle of it. And that is the most prevalent level of pleasure that we can have. And that is the seed that also expands our capacity for physical pleasure. That is the ability to be really here, even when it's tricky and, people feel different ways. It expands our capacity to be present in intimate situations, whether that's a woman's or men's circle, whether that's intimacy, sexuality. So, and when we're present, the space for pleasure goes from here, and we can consciously like expand it and use that as a way and to bring our energy and hold it in our higher energy centers. We can, work with the Kundalini more effectively that way. And we can continue, using both of those things, pleasure, presence, and sensuality, and our sexuality to, allow pleasure to be the inherent factor that leads our lives rather than something we're seeking out. This is the seed. This is the emanation that I come from. And in that energy wave, I know what is for me and I know what is not for me. And we can trust that, even though we've been told for so long that we can't trust that. We have to use our brains to say, I have to work this and work that. Start to notice and start to cultivate this space of pleasure. Your sacral yes and no lives in your sacral chakra, which is your creative and your sexual and your sensual space. Your sensuality clues you in to what's a yes for you and what's a no. And if you were to devote yourself to follow that all of your life, then you will open your bliss doorway by doorway by doorway in a way that never harms anyone else and ends up being the best for all. And that's why it's been deemed dark and negative and dark feminine, and all of these terms have been because women carry this natural, and men do too as well, like, and we all do to different levels of embodiment, but it's natural for women to carry this spark of sensuality, which is a big spark in the world. So you can play with that in your own, understanding of your own sensuality. If that's it's a feminine energy that ignites and can be used for sexuality, or can be used for raising our energy for other things, or it can be diverted to our vitality. It can be diverted into our studies. And, so we can use that energy however we should so choose. And we can also cycle it and store it in our bodies. So we have access to it later, and our vitality is risen and elevated at the same time. So thank you so much. Hopefully this video comes across well, and thanks for tuning in. So,